on the shore, relentless in the war. The legions in our hearts, shed waters in our voice. The spirit and the flesh, the emotions that arrest. The cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded. The teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. With the semblance of a blaze, with gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. The world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Testing. Imagine falling down a flight of steps and hitting your knee, striking your knee on the hard, cold marble tiles below. Would you be surprised if it hurt? No, you would not be surprised. You did not need an expert to predict the fact that it was going to be painful. You do not need an expert to predict that there might be some swelling, that there will be a period of healing, reconnaissance, if you will. You will need to slowly recover and slowly be able to put weight back on that knee. You don't need to run to the hospital and be like, oh my God, why does my knee hurt? I feel bad about my knee hurting. I don't understand it. It is crazy. No, we understand injury in the body. We understand injury in the physical. But what is the analogy for injury in the mental space? Okay? What is the analogy for injury in the mental space? What is the mental equivalent of a bad diet? What is the mental equivalent of a pathogen, a parasite, a virus? What is the mental equivalent of a lack of exercise? Do we have strong intuitions and a story and a understanding and context for mental health the same way you do if you fell down and hit your knee? Do you know what to expect? Do you know how to start leaning on the knee after the first week and the second week and so on and so forth? What are the mental corollaries, if you will, the mental equivalents? What kind of analogies can we make in terms of mental exercise, mental bad diet? What is a mental bad diet, ladies and gentlemen? So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ike Ogiamian, and on this channel, we talk about being and doing. And sometimes being better and doing better with a strong emphasis on doing. And today, what are we doing? What are we doing today, ladies and gentlemen? We are asking the question, what is mental health? We keep things very simple around here: measurable, actionable, intuitive. And we are going to start out with a very low resolution map of the landscape of mental health. We find ourselves in a situation where we cannot commiserate with ourselves or with each other with regards to mental health. If your friend fell down that flight of steps, banged his knee, you understand how that works. You're like, oh, yeah, that's why you're in a cast. And it's going to take a couple of weeks. You're going to be out for a little bit. I'll leave you be. Okay. I'll send you some stuff on the Cash App or whatever it may be. We can commiserate within the space of physical health. We can understand what it means to have a bad diet. We can understand what it means to have a parasite and to sanitize our hands against the bear flu. But when it comes to mental health, we don't have this kind of intuition, this kind of firm understanding, a good story, a good map. And I say, hey, it's all good. After all, we're all Western materialists. We find it difficult to deal with mental things, with consciousness, which is why I'm constantly bringing up consciousness in my channel. So we populate our minds with expert jargon and platitudes and clichés, and we need an expert to tell us what a bad diet is. That'd be ridiculous if you needed to go to the doctor to tell you that drinking Monsters and Cheetos every night, all your meals, is a bad thing. In the space of mental health, however, that's the situation where we're in. We are in a situation where if we fall and hit our knee, we are surprised that it hurts. We don't know what to do about the swelling. We don't understand how to recover. We feel ashamed that we're actually in pain. We don't have good intuition for it, good concepts for it, good map, and a good storyline. So we're going to try to change that. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try today to create a low resolution map, okay, using simple analogical thinking, as you may already have noticed. Okay, there's stigma and ostracism and lack of empathy because of a lack of basic common sense. There's lack of basic common sense. We talk in platitudes and in cliches about mental health. Mental wellness. What is that? What is that? You don't go around saying physical wellness. No, you say cardiovascular, you say diet, you say, being safe against accidents. You talk about sanitizing your area so you're, or let's say, inoculation, immunization, and so on and so forth. We talk in that way. We talk as if we actually know what we're talking about when we talk about physical health. But mental health is all of a sudden it's clouds and bubbles and mental wellness and all that crap. And I don't like that. And we are going to change that You should not like that either, okay? Over here, we like to know things. As you may have noticed, we like to have a real, clear, common sense, intuitive understanding of what the hell is going on. Okay? So we will try to build a low resolution map and an intuition and a story based on an analogy with the physical world. And in order to do that, I have a guest with me. And yes, neither of us are experts. That's the whole point of this. We want to go back into our houses and shake ourselves off and be like, oh, what the hell? I've been running to the surgery theater, to the emergency room, simply because I didn't know what a good mental diet was, simply because I didn't understand what mental injury was. And I've been repeating all kinds of platitudes and cliches and crap without intuitive understanding and common sense understanding. I cannot commiserate with those who actually suffer from mental health because I'm afraid of it. I have no context whatsoever. We need to stop listening to the experts for like 15 minutes. Go back, get a ground level basic understanding at the highest level we can achieve so that we can commiserate with others and so that we can understand ourselves and so that we can have better mental health. Let me get a one in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, if this makes sense to you, what we're trying to do here, okay? If the proposition that we have no intuition whatsoever and that we are rather horrible with this, that we are in an equivalent position of somebody falling down the steps and being surprised that their knee hurts and being surprised at the swelling and not knowing what to do with the fact that next week it's still a little weird, not understanding the mechanisms and so on and so forth. Let me get a one in the chat if you understand that this is the current situation that we are in, and that the first step to make is, hey, you know what? We're not all lost, Felicia and Kaizo. We're not all lost, Sebastian. We're not all lost. We are, after all, Western materialists, and we understand physicality. We understand that knee. We know where it is. It got hurt right there. It's going to swell over there. It's going to take a couple of weeks. I got to put ice on it. Blah, blah, blah. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our knowledge of physical injury, our knowledge of a good diet, good exercise, pathogens, and we're going to transpose it over to a low resolution map of mental health space. Low resolution, simple, analogical thinking. We're not going deep. No, not in this video. We have to first of all have some way of understanding, or at least coming out of our unconscious ignorance to the place where we are consciously ignorant. And then maybe we move up to conscience or conscious competence. And then we go to the highest height, which is unconscious competence, where we're just flowing and being and watching ourselves do the thing without even knowing what we're doing because we know it so well. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a guest in the house, and as I said, the guest is not an expert. We're just two dudes. Aitois, the regular in our channel, the president of American Heritage University, ladies and gentlemen, and the head of admissions at the law school. And we are going to talk about mental health because this should be a common sense thing, because we are in dire straits. We're in a horrible situation, okay? We don't know what the hell we're talking about. So, Aitois, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. About yourself?
I am doing very well. So I'm going to go ahead and just start off the conversation this way. I'm going to say, what comes to mind when the phrase mental health comes up? What comes to mind, and also what feelings come up? Because for me, it's not just something that comes to mind. There's a feeling that comes along with it. It's a feeling of vagueness, like, what do you mean? It almost also feels kind of sappy, right? Like
mental wellness and mental health. It feels like someone cowering in the corner, like, oh, no, don't look at me. I want to be. It's like, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so let me. What comes to mind when that phrase comes up?
Well, I think when that phrase comes up, it's an opportunity to talk about what we're talking about here, but putting it in a sentence that's socially acceptable. And because traditionally, and there's some research backing this statement, there are different races and cultures that shy away from being vulnerable. And I say that to say that when we talk about mental health, it's a form of you're vulnerable, you're weak. Is the statement or the adjective that immediately follows in certain cultures when the word mental health comes along. But I think from a social perspective, that is the statement that we used to talk about how we're feeling emotionally and how we're reacting psychologically.
The vulnerability part that you mentioned, it's rather interesting because it immediately strikes me as, well, yes, we are vulnerable. I mean, you don't go just jumping off a 100-foot cliff and expecting not to die, So the same thing, and I keep bringing that kind of an example of, you fall down the steps. No one is going to be like, ha, 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 his knees are bleeding. It's like, he just fell down the step, just smashed the glass on his way down and everything. His knees are bleeding and he's going to be in pain for a while. There's going to be all kinds of things that need to happen. You're going to need to leave him alone for a little bit.
That's
okay?
right. That's right.
However, when it comes to mental vulnerability, there seems to be this kind of a weird, like, I am Superman, because you can pretend to be, because you can't pretend to be metal, right? Everybody sees you. Everybody knows you're made of flesh. But given the fact that you can pretend and hide and deceive others into thinking that you're Superman mentally, then I think that's the case. So that's a good point. Okay. Now, let's begin with the analogy, because this whole point here is just a very low level, low resolution map that we're trying to paint here. And we're just simply using analogical thinking. What is the equivalence, right? So let's start with the diet, right? So the thing about diet is that we need to eat, right?
Right.
So the analogy here is that there are things mentally that we need to take in. Okay.
Correct.
We're not talking about things that you don't want to take in, or we're talking about things that you need to take in. Let's say, for example, communication with people, socialization with people. Okay. We know that if we don't do that, then we get mentally ill, right? So this will be, let's say, one kind of food. Okay. We need to consume media also, for example. We need to, and by media, I don't just mean Facebook and so on and so forth. You can go to myths and stories and ritual and art and religious ceremonies and all that stuff. All that kind of stuff coming from the external, coming in, where it's such that we see that it is ubiquitous all through human culture, and we see that there's something about it that is key and critical to health, such for example, like confession, which we see as therapy now, or AA groups and so on and so forth. There are these things that we need to consume. So let's just call that diet. This is the diet analogy now, so that when we talk, we can be more precise, at least with ourselves, and maybe somebody else can come up with a better scheme. And as a matter of fact, and I know I'm being long-winded, and that's what I do. As a matter of fact, this is just the first pass, low resolution painting, right? And then because as a matter of fact, if you watch my channel, we get very granular and high resolution. We've gotten really deep into the mind already, but now we're coming out and saying, hey, here's what we're actually talking about. Right. So there are things we need to take in, okay? And in the world of, let's say, physical world, we know what a balanced diet is, without overeating, without eating crap, eating good food in a balanced way, not overeating, not getting hungover, and so on and so forth. So what would you consider a bad mental diet? What space does it consist in? And also, of course, the good mental diet. Okay, what's the landscape here? What kind of lines can we draw on the map?
Well, first of all, let's just go back and tackle the subject of a physical diet. What you eat. So if you are surrounded by people eating pizza and burgers, and people who don't exercise and are eating high fat or high carb foods, and and all of that, you can be a product of that environment. to some degree, the mental space, it works in a similar way. If you're around people who are talking about, critical thinking and are giving you are giving audible sounds to you that influence your mind, because here's the thing. There's what we call the thinker and the prover. Okay. If I think I'm gonna go get Chipotle tonight, then all of a sudden my brain creates a path. Okay, I gotta get my card ready. I gotta place the order because I can't walk in there anymore. I have to log in and place it. I know what time I'm gonna eat it. All of a sudden my brain follows these procedures to bring that thought and bring it into fruition. And that is the process called the prover of your thoughts. So you have the thinking aspect of what you do, and then actions follow your thoughts to produce results. I call it PAR, sometimes processes, actions, and results. So what we take for granted is how powerful but yet simple that process is. So I'll give you an example. I have 3 boys, and I remember I would wake up in the morning and I would be laying in bed, say at 7 in the morning, and then my little one comes in, and then the middle one comes in, and the oldest one comes in, and we all sit on the bed and we're just talking about stuff. And then all of a sudden, a month or so later, I decided I'm gonna start working out. So 6:30 in the morning, I'm in my garage in the gym, and then the little one comes out, and then they all come out, and then they all want to work out with me. And that same scenario, I started watching, like you mentioned earlier, mythologies. I was watching the excavation processes of the pharaohs and the kings in the Valley of the Kings, and I started watching about Machu Picchu and the Incas, and all of a sudden they started watching that. Let's take that scenario and let's put it into a mental space. So if I'm telling if I'm telling my son how to think and make decisions, if I'm telling someone around me how to think and make decisions, or how to approach something from a different perspective, where you're considering both sides of it, and what's starting to happen, I see that the environment that I'm in, I see especially my children, being that we're all home, I see them taking those similar analogies and applying those. So going back to what I said earlier, we have to understand that your mind is just a blank piece of paper. You have to choose what you want to write in there, and it's often influenced by what you watch, what you listen to, and who you surround yourself with. If you are talking to someone who's recovered from having really, really bad credit, and you say, hey, should I get a credit card? They're going to tell you, oh no, this is going to get you in debt. It's really bad for you. I think I've shared this example before, but if you're talking to someone who has great credit, they're going to feed your mental with something different. They would say, oh, it's great. I was able to get this house because I had excellent credit. So we have to, if we're going to talk about mental space, it's important for us to look at our environment and the kind of people and the kind of sounds, both audio and visual, that are affecting or influencing our mental space. Just like I said earlier, if you're around people who are exercising, watching their carbs, and you'll find yourself, somewhere in that area. But if you're exposing yourself, or not at your own fault, but if you're surrounded by a group of people who lack the ideologies and topics we're discussing right here today, it's not, you wouldn't be too far from not knowing these little tips and tricks, because you don't have that information or those ideas exposed to you. I don't know if I drifted off your question, but I think
No, I think it's a good thing. Right off the jump, you mentioned something that I did not even consider too much in the physical space, in terms of physical diet, and which is the people that are around you.
That's right.
Right. And it's like, if you're hanging out with your beer drinking, pizza eating buddies, that's going to influence what you can do. And it also brings to mind, and this is only tangentially related, when you're traveling a lot and you can't control what you eat, where you eat, and so on and so forth, that affects your physical diet. So in the same way, and I also noticed the same thing happens when you're traveling too, you can't also control your mental diet in terms of the media you tend to consume or not consume, right? So I think that is 100%. You made a very salient point. The whole point about you guys being in bed, and then you starting out being in the gym, and now they're wanting to come into the gym. So key point is, just like in your physical diet, okay, and we know that there are things that you need to take in. I don't think we necessarily need to go too deep into the things that you're taking in. You need to take in media, art, music, rituals, and communication with other people. And there can be bad diet, and I think the people aspect is one key point I'm taking away from that. Like, okay, bad diet, bad mental diet. Okay, people that are doing bad,
That's right.
we already kind of know. I think in this one we can, at least for me, it seems like we can go with a very simple intuition on that one, where it's like, okay, I can see it. I can see it. Okay, so we need a diet. Okay, we need to eat something. So that's kind of why I started there. What are the things that we take in? How do we influence those things that we take in? I think a lot of us know what is uplifting to us and what is not. And the kinds of music, the kinds of product, and so on and so forth. We need not have an explicit list of that. But I think very key there is the kinds of people that go along with the kinds of dietary habits that you would like to have. So we need a diet, right? But we don't need parasites. Okay, that's another thing that comes from the outside. Okay,
right.
We eat the beans and the potatoes, but we block our faces against the bear flu, right? So, and I think since we're creating this very low resolution map using the physical health space as an analogy, so we move on now to something else that is coming from the outside, which is pathogens. We understand that one. We know how to sanitize ourselves against physical viruses, parasites of other kinds. So how do we, before I ask how we sanitize that ourselves against that, and what you think about the mental viruses, or what you might consider to be a mental virus. For me, for example, I consider bad ideas, like, to be some kind of a mind virus. And I know I use the word bad, and the philosophers out there, don't come at me. We're not going to open up a whole massive book of argumentation about ethics right now, but let's just take bad common sense. We're being common sense here, okay,
That's
ladies
right.
and gentlemen. We're being common sense. What do you mean bad? No, please. Okay, if you have these bad ideas that engender irrationality, for example, and then will manifest, it actually has physical manifestations, okay, and causes stress and so on and so forth, and causes you to be out of congruence with reality, whether reality be defined as the social construct out there, the rules of the game out there, or physical reality, right? It could be physical reality or the social construct. If you have these ideas that are so out of congruency with them, then these could be bad ideas, and they're kind of mind viruses. Well, what do you think, okay, about what I said generally here? And how do we inoculate ourselves, or perhaps sanitize the environment against these idea pathogens?
Okay, I think what a lot of people don't understand is the value of having some principles, and the step to establishing principles come from doing some reading. I know you talk about reading a lot on this channel and meditating, and allow me to use myself as an example. When I first got married, I realized I had a temper, that would flare up when things didn't go my way. And I knew that it was a strength because it allowed me to hold on to things that I were extremely passionate about. At the same time, I knew that it was going to be a weakness because you can't always control your environment. Like you said earlier, when you're traveling, you can't control what's coming at you. You can't control how soon the pilot takes off. You can't control anything. So, but what I've realized over time is your ability to establish principles that guard your own personal innocence is vital to surviving in this world when we're talking about mental health. So the something very simple to do is, the moment you find something that you deem uncomfortable, you don't like, there is an emotional sting, there is a mental sting that stung you that you didn't like. So what I've learned to do is to take that. And the first thing is, I'm not going to take it personal. I've realized that someone who's frustrated has more to do with the decision that they made, has really nothing to do with me. So, there's a book that I've read. I think I talked about it on this channel the last time I was here. I don't know if I did. It's called The Four Agreements. That is a fantastic, soul, spirit food and mental food that everyone should read. There is an audio version.
Don Miguel.
Don Miguel. There's an audio version. It's fantastic. I mean, after reading that book, it really teaches you that, there are some agreements, be impeccable with your word. Don't take things personally. I can't remember it all top of my head. But the point is, after reading that book, I realized that when something is said to me, I can take that information and I can interpret it any way that I want. And I always choose to interpret it as something that has nothing to do with me. However, if it has something to do with me, I look for what they said to me as criticism for me to be better, or if it's bad, I just personally choose to reject it. So, my mentor, I have a mentor, and he said, if someone throws a basket of trash at you and you find $1 in there, just pick up the dollar and walk away. Right? So, in a sense, there's always a lot of emotional garbage that's thrown at us left and right. When something doesn't go wrong, he says, "Can you guys speak on phobias?" That's a good one. I saw that in the chat. I'm sure Ike will pay attention to that. But so what I'm saying to simplify this is, you have the ability to react and control how you have the ability to control how you react to a situation. And by spending some time meditating, you will get in touch with your inner mind. Your inner mind is always at a state of asking you, what am I supposed to do? Like I said, there's the prover and the thinker. So someone says, I think you suck at cleaning. Well, the first thing we want to do is, well, I don't suck. That's you. No, repeat it like we said in this channel before. You think I suck at cleaning? Can you give me some suggestions on how I can, maybe not suck at cleaning? Then you're controlling the situation. And it's an exercise, just like you physically lift up those dumbbells, 20 reps, 30 reps, and they get stronger and tougher. You have to practice these mental exercises. When someone says something at you, pause, give yourself 3 seconds, 4 seconds, or sometimes someone's mad at you, write everything in an email, save it in your draft, and wait 24 hours. Go back and read it. And if you still feel angry, read it 24 hours again. 48 hours later, you realize that maybe it's not that big of a deal, right? These are little exercises that after you do them for a little while, then you become supreme. Because, and what I mean by supreme, you become in complete control of how you react to the world around you, even when it doesn't go your way. You become more empathetic, you become more understanding, because you realize that everyone is just struggling somehow. And your ability to maintain your composure when their struggles are being thrown at you is the very first step in understanding mental health and how you can be in control of it.
100%. You talked about how to sanitize, inoculate, almost create a barrier and a screen, is what I heard there. And we're talking about the pathogens, right? Well, how do you not let the pathogens in? Principles.
That's right.
Okay. You have these principles, not taking it personally. It's almost like, if you take it personally, you let it in.
That's right.
If you don't take it personally, you don't let it in. So, equivalent to washing your hands, putting on that mask, and the other things that we do in general, not rolling around in pigsties like some of us like to do, then that is the equivalent of you blocking yourself against these pathogens, the idea pathogens, the story pathogens, the getting attacked in your, the your mama attack, right?
That's a good one.
Oh, your mama. And that's the way to trigger everybody, because everyone has a mother. And that is it's not that everyone's mom is so precious or anything. It's just that particular one thing is what we know everybody has.
That's right.
So and we like to attack each other in our stories. Okay. And if I'm sounding strange, my apologies. I like some continuation in my channel. So, and I like to talk about Storyville a lot, and stories, and the fact that we are stories, and identity is a bunch of layered stories, and so on and so forth. Okay. We all know, as part of everyone's story, there's this one thing. It's called the mother. You had to have had one.
That's right.
Okay. And then I can always throw a stone at that part of your story. I don't know. Maybe can I attack him with his materialism? Maybe he doesn't care about shoes or socks or he's got a mother, your mama, right? So not letting it in is a barrier. It is some kind of inoculation or whatever. Not using the inoculation is not a perfect word for that, but you guys get what I mean. So
Yep.
principles and not taking it personally, and you become supreme. Now, regarding what's on there, okay. Regarding phobias, I'm going to say something, and if you have anything to add, and as we go on, and then also as I open up the stream, we will touch upon, I'm sure, in a more granular fashion, more of these things. But phobias, generally speaking, what I have to say about that, and again, this is not medical advice, obviously, and it's not medical advice on purpose. In other words, we're trying to talk and come up with a set of analogies so that we're not in a situation whereby we fall down the steps, we hit our knee, and we're surprised that it hurts, right? So we need to talk as laymen, build up common sense, build up basic intuition. So phobia for me, because I have certain phobias. I see everything in the spectrum because things tend to be in a spectrum. Some things I'm more scared of than others, but it's always a question of exposure. Right? It's always a question of exposure therapy. It's always a question of moving closer and closer, step by step, towards the thing you're afraid of. If you're afraid of elevators, for example, go to a building with an elevator bank. That's your first exercise. Keep going there. And in line with your 48-hour rule, if you feel super agitated the first day, wait, go back the next day. If you're super agitated wait until that agitation of just being in the lobby of a building with elevators comes down. Okay, now you're past that first step. Next level, go and stand in front of the elevators. Look at them. Watch people come out. You're going to freak out. You're like, oh my God, what's going on today? I'm going to die. I'm going to throw up. If the first day you throw up, fine. The second day, you're a little bit more calm. Third day, so on and on and on. Maybe the next step is you just open the elevator and look in. Fourth step, you actually open and you poke your head in and you run out real quick. But that's the idea. You gradually desensitize yourself to whatever it is you're afraid of, to whatever it is you're trying to learn, to whatever it is you're trying to inculcate into your being. So that is what I would just say at this point in a brief manner about. And do you have anything to add about phobias?
Yeah.
And you froze there for there for a minute.
Can you hear me now?
Again.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Christianity, they talk a lot about faith and they talk about fear. And if I were to bring those two elements into this conversation, fear and faith require the same thing. If you're, I was watching my 3-year-old a year ago. He was freaked out he said there's a monster in his room, and he went into his blanket. Now, you and I both know that if there's really a monster in there, the blanket's not going to save you. So in that one instance, he did two things that I find extraordinary. He created an image of something in his closet that he's afraid of, but it really wasn't there. So that's a good question right there. I think that's something we could talk about. But he created something that wasn't there, and he was afraid of his own thoughts because there is no such thing as a monster, right? But he said there's a monster in there, and he went underneath his blanket and all of a sudden assumed that as long as I'm in this blanket, I am not, I'm safe. But if a monster was really there, it'll step out of the closet and you might still get hurt, even being underneath the blanket. Mm-hmm. So a phobia is something that we've created in our own mind. And the exercise you gave, I think it's a perfect analogy. We have to get rid of that fear, because everything that we want to achieve or not everything, but let me be respectful and say there are certain things that we want to achieve in life that are going to be past the things that we are afraid of. So my own phobia is I'm claustrophobic. I hate being stuck between, like when I get in the plane, I can't sit on the by the window. No, I need to sit by the, by the row. I'm not sitting in the middle. And I don't fly often, so I really never get an opportunity to tackle that, right? But one time I got in the plane and the plane was empty and it was not, it was room. So I sat in the middle and I realized that it wasn't that I was afraid of being in there. is because I have long arms and long legs, and I feel that I can't rest properly because there's someone. So really, I was so worried about not making the other person uncomfortable that it was making me uncomfortable. So it wasn't so much more that I didn't like the middle seat, but I felt like I was suffering so I can give peace or give space to everyone else. So what's the point? The point here is, of course, all phobias are not made equal, right? I don't get to fly often, so that doesn't bother me much. But there might be some things that you have a phobia for that might be on a day-to-day or week-to-week. But the idea is to understand that it's something that you've created in your mind, and you have what it takes to bring it down by simply giving it a name, giving it an image, and looking at it over and over, or like Ike said, visiting it, and then eventually you realize that it's just your imagination that's doing all that work.
That is very, you know what? That whole thing about, because I, for one, I recall quite clearly all those little kinds of tricks we play with our minds, especially as kids, right? That you're like, okay, this thing is gonna get me, but if I just do my hand like this, or I don't know, put one hand over my head, or whatever it may be, some kind of crazy thing like that, equivalent to covering yourself with a blanket, then I'm fine. And I'm just saying that now so that I can remember that I need to kind of study that loop, because it's an interesting loop.
Right.
You created the danger, and then you created the solution,
the safety, right?
And you're like, what is going on there? That I think, I would like to hack that one.
Yeah, it's a saying that faith and fear require one thing, and that is belief. I believe there's danger over there, and I believe that if I go under the blanket, I'm safe, right? So we're just playing our own trick, It's kind of like saying here, not here, and believing that the hand's actually gone.
Wow. Okay. I'm not gonna get completely sidetracked there, but I gotta find a way to hack that one. I like that loop. Now, regarding the question that is on there, you mentioned that it's a good question, and that's something you could touch. Do you have something to say about stuttering in particular?
I do. Stuttering. First, this was asked by Lion Legal. I watched an interesting video about Steve Harvey that I'm borrowing this solution for. I thought it was an extraordinary solution. He said, say it in your mind first. Your mind doesn't stutter. The mind is such a powerful tool that was given to us in creation. You can imagine anything you want. You can imagine yourself in Hawaii right now. You can imagine yourself in a spacecraft. It doesn't, your imagination has no limits, right? So imagine yourself speaking the way you want to speak, right? And you have to calm yourself down, and that's where meditation comes in, and fall in love with that imagination, knowing that you can bring that imagination to life if you have enough confidence that the stuttering is a physical and mind thing, but the reality is your mind can say everything clearly without any problems. I don't know if that makes any sense. So say it in your mind a couple of times. It's kind of like you go into the bank and you say, I like to make a deposit, and they say, okay, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm good. And how much do you want to, so what do you want to do? Okay, I want to deposit in my checking account. And you have this process already in your mind, but you just say it because you're confident that's what you want to do. So stuttering has been linked to an absence of not being confident. It is a physical condition, but it can be solved by meditating and focusing on, I'm about to say, I want to put money in my bank account. So I'm just going to hear it. I'm going to hear it in my mind and say, I'm going to put money in my bank account. And again, just like anything else, after a while, it becomes, repetition. It becomes habit.
100%. So you're hearing it from someone else. They mentioned meditation, so that you don't accuse Ike of having the one silver bullet to everything that meditation is. But look, it's super powerful. You develop concentration, sensory clarity, and equanimity, and you apply it to your feeling, image, and talk. And what else is there to life? Okay, so so now let's move on to, and I think that brilliantly we're going through step by step and in a very common sense, low resolution map way, using this analogy of physical health, which being nice Western materialists we're good at. We can weigh matter, we can measure it, we can see it, we can map out the trajectory. We're very good with that stuff. Consciousness, we're scared. Okay, we're very scared of consciousness. We, you know, all this Cartesian dualism, mind, matter, body, spirit. We don't know what to do with it. Okay, but so far we've been able to create a couple of things. First and foremost, we talked about the diet. Okay, want to watch your diet? One thing to do, amongst others, is to watch the people around you and what they're eating. What is their mental diet? Okay, you want to talk about pathogens? Okay, how to block these pathogens, these idea pathogens, and other kinds of pathogens that attack you. Okay, have principles, number one, and then number two, have a personality. In my video, I mean, sorry, not don't take it personally. Don't take it personally.
Don't take it personally.
I said have a personality.
Have one though, right?
yeah. You know, it helps. Okay, it helps, Felicia, to have a personality. So, in one of my videos, I talked about, you know, I said why you exist. Okay, and you know, I went there. I'm like, why you exist, and I'm going to tell you why you exist. And in that video, I kind of expounded upon the whole "you are a story" thing, and I ended up saying because it ended up in ethics land. Like, what do you do? What practically can you do about the fact that you're a story? And I said, have a story that is based on principle. And that's the leanest story you can have. It has the least amount of baggage, because you can have a story that is based on all this other parts of your identity, like your tribe. Well, begin with your mama, right? Begin with your mom and the family that you're in and their story, and then the tribe, and then the nation, and then your particular chronology, and then whatever BS idea pathogen was put in your head, like a victim narrative, for example, right? You put that on top of it, and so on and so on and so forth. You are just prone to all kinds of attack, right? You can be attacked everywhere. You're barely even, yeah. So point, and the fact that you kind of said it, that, you know, how do you protect? And then you said principle. I was like, boom, you said it. Having the principle, okay, protects you from all these ways in which you could attack you, because you need a story. Okay, you need a content in your. You cannot just be formless, floating out there like some kind of a black hole. Okay,
right.
So you're gonna need something. Okay, but the point is to shave away, just like was it Da Vinci or whomever said that thing about, you know, you have this marble and then you kind of chip away at it and you find, you know, the statue in there. So what you want to do is, you have this personality. It has all these things that it attracts. It attracts how much money you have in the bank. It attracts certain things about your natal condition or your genetic condition. You won the genetic lottery. You're super tall, like Ike, or what? I mean, like like Ike and Aitwa. Whatever it may be, all these things that you kind of glom on to your identity and so on and so forth. You want to go in there and you want to start shaving them away systematically. Through meditation, mainly shaving them away until you get to the core principles, which is, what am I about? What are the ends worth pursuing for me? Okay. So the next kind of a physical analogy that we have, okay, is the one that I've been talking about right from the beginning, which is injury, just pure injury. Okay. Again, we're talking about physical health and mental health. We talk about pathogens, diet. Now we're talking about injury. Okay. So injury is the one that we have the most intuition for, because of pain. Pain is a very powerful thing, right? You can't ignore it. You can ignore a bad diet. You can ignore that kind of low level, low energy until you have a contrast after you come out with a good diet and a good workout. It's easy to ignore those. But physical injury, fall down steps, you know, and so on and so forth. Okay. But we do not know how to deal with, in a matter of fact way, the fact that, you know, your mom told you she never loved you and you're a loser, just like your loser dad or something. Like, yeah, she got you where it hurt. We don't know how to expect that. Oh, okay, someone just pushed me off some stairs. Okay, and it's gonna hurt, and there's gonna be some swelling, maybe some bleeding. Maybe I'll need a cast. Maybe before I'm able to put some pressure on that foot again, it'll take some time. Right? I don't think that we have the ability to deal with that in a matter-of-fact way. So how should we view and deal with mental injury? And in general, what comes to mind when you think of the term mental injury?
Mental injury is something that was said to you, or something that didn't exactly go your way, and it gives you some psychological or, you know, spiritual pain. Let's just take a simple example. I lost my pet, or I was fired from my job, or my partner dumped me. Okay, there's pain, and
Mhm.
the first thing that we have to acknowledge that that pain is real. Okay, and I had a video where I talked about this. This is one thing that people talk about recovery a lot. Athletes will play a sports game and then they have to, rest, or you run, after a good run or workout, then you have to, relax a little bit. But no one ever talks about mental recovery. So what is a mental recovery? A mental recovery is a moment to sit down and run your day slowly, identifying anything that you weren't happy about. And let's assume that let's take an example. I lost my job. So sit down and say, I lost my job. Okay. That really sucks. Okay. It really sucks. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I, how do I get myself financially, rolling, and all that? And then say to yourself, okay, this is what it is. Now that this happened, I'm going to look at this for a little bit. I'm going to sit here for 20 minutes. I'm just going to feel that pain, and it's burning. Okay. But then what kind of decisions or actions can I make tomorrow that will get rid of this pain? Okay, maybe I'm just going to leave this pain right here in my mind, and I'm going to go on Google right now, or Indeed, or jobs, and I'm going to look for a job. Or maybe I'm just going to call a friend of mine and say, hey, you know what? I just lost my job. And they are going to say words, or there'll be an exchange of statements and ideas that can help or start the healing process. Maybe your friend says, well, I mean, you're better than that job anyway. There's a buddy of mine that's not even half as qualified as you, just got this job over here. And maybe I could put in a good word for you, right? So that person is making what I call deposits into your mental space that starts what would be similar to a little massage or a hug, right? Or a back rub that says it's going to be okay. And then what you need to do at that point is understand that that pain is real. It's okay to feel that pain. It's not okay to tuck it away somewhere in the corner. Just like if you fell down a flight of stairs, you're just not going to get up and go, I'm good, and start running around. No, no, no. You're going to sit there and go, ouch. And have you ever noticed even the face? I watch these professional athletes get hurt, and they have to grinch their face. They can't hide it because the pain is real, right? So to some degree, you have to take that pain and then start to think about things using the freedom of your imagination that can start somewhat of a healing process. So just imagine that, okay, so they called me back and they said it was a mistake, and then laugh about it, right? Or I'm gonna go to another place. Something that I've done one time when I was, back in my early 20s, I got fired from a job. I wasn't so happy. I went on the internet and I looked for like the top jobs ever. I know I don't qualify for those jobs, right? And it was like the pay was like $300,000 for negotiable with all benefits. And I just imagined applying for the job, and they said, oh yeah, we're going to give you this job. We're so impressed with your resume. And I realized that pain was just because it's a real pain, but it was so easy to fix that. I'm going to give you one more example. Back when I was in my early 20s, I was dating this girl. I drove this car, and back at that age, we wanted big sound systems and those radio stations that flipped out, and we thought it made us cool. They were ego boosters, right? So she says, I'm going to borrow your car because mine doesn't have any, and mine has a problem. I thought, okay, no problem. And she calls me and she says, oh my God, I got in an accident. And right away, I flared up with pain and frustration and anger.
My sound system, my whoopers in the
everything.
trunk.
And then she says, oh, can you my sister's coming to pick you up to come meet me. So her sister comes and picks me up. And then I see my car down the street, and I see a bunch of people around it. And I'm thinking, this can't be real. And I walked over. They said, surprise. She's like, I got you a new sound system. I'm like, oh. And at that very moment, all of the frustration and anger just disappeared. And that was where I realized that we have the ability to take a pain because it's all based on belief. I believe that this is hurting me, and it is. And I believe that I could get rid of this pain, and you can. But give yourself time. You know, don't think, don't do the, oh, okay, I'm just gonna, you don't do what the kid does and who jumps underneath the blanket and assumes that the danger is gone, right? Rather, give yourself time to mourn, right? And say, okay, this really happened and it sucks. But as your mourning, start to think about getting better. Just like as you're thinking about my legs hurting, the first thing you're going to find yourself doing is, can I put some weight on it? You're going to stand up and say, okay, I could put some weight on it. And then you kind of flex the leg back and forth. And now you're really trying to get back to normal, right? But you're just not going to hop up the floor after falling down the flight of stairs and go, okay, let's go to the bar, right? It's going to be, give me a moment, right? So that moment is not a day, 2 days, 3 days a week, a month, a year. That's up to you to decide. No one's going to tell you it's a week to get over it. But the more you practice that, the quicker you get at recovering. And that's the key when we're talking about mental injury, is knowing, acknowledging the injury and giving yourself time to heal. And more importantly, surrounding yourself with people, audios, and your audio and visual senses that could stimulate healing. So, you know, reading a book, talking to someone, surrounding yourself with positive energy, they all influence how quickly you recover from mental injury.
100%, 100%. And if you don't mind reading what's on the screen right now.
Yes, it says, if you guys, how exactly do you go through exposure? In my case, I do exposure daily, but sometimes feels overwhelmed. Curious as to how you go into and through a phobia. Oh, well, he says Ike. Yeah. So what exposure are we talking to? Are we talking about?
Yeah, so it's a phobia, and they're going to go through exposure therapy in terms of, you know, as for example, you're scared of elevators and you go to the elevator bank and slowly. For me, it started out a very long time ago in terms of like mentally. Okay. And it's similar to something that Kaizo said in the chat in our meditation stream, which is every Tuesday. Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, public service announcement. We are live Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays and Sundays, and sometimes Fridays. And hey, lucky you will be getting a stream this Friday. Okay, so tomorrow we'll be streaming as well. So Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays and Sundays, and sometimes a bonus stream on Friday. Tuesdays, for the foreseeable future, we're doing the How to Meditate series. And hence, on Tuesday, Kaizo mentioned that he does negative meditation, which means that he imagines horrible stuff and then tries to get
calm down. All right.
Same thing. Okay. You were talking about some kind of a mental hurt. You said, go back, review your day, sit in the pain.
That's right.
Okay. So I would say that, okay, to answer the question on the on there, and then I'll go through the super chats. Shout out to all you guys out there super chatting. It's very, very, very welcome. Very much appreciated. And don't be scared to go to the Patreon as well. And moderators, drop the Patreon every 10 minutes or so. So for me, it started a long time ago. As a child, I will always, especially with regards to those things that we create, the fears we create, I would put myself in a situation where I am imagining, just like Kaiso said, certain things that I don't like to mix together. Okay. A lot of this stuff is irrational. So there's no point in kind of explaining exactly what it is. It's like, I'm like, okay, in other words, I force myself to be uncomfortable. It's just, it's been a habit that I've always done, always tried to do. And look, I am the shyest person that I know in terms of just the natural disposition and also growing up and so on and so forth. But I'm also the lead singer in a band, one of the dopest lead singers out there, by the way.
That's right. That's right.
These two things are true. And it's because I always put myself in a situation where I'm uncomfortable. I mentally imagine these uncomfortable situations and then I feel it in my gut. And then I'm like, I'll stop. I'm like, what is that feeling in the gut? And then it relaxes away because guess what? It's not pixie dust. It's muscles. You know what I mean? It's like feelings are feelings. They're not coming from, it's not like, Poseidon or Zeus decided to throw a lightning bolt down. It's like, no, I feel that in my, that hurt over there. And they're like, okay, just watch over there.
Take a deep breath.
It's a muscle, it's nerves, it's this, it's that. You roll your head. It's physical, right? And that's the whole point of this particular stream is coming with the physical analogies, creating a low resolution map, and so on and so forth. So for me, the overwhelming aspect that was mentioned here when he said, it feels overwhelming, you want to then go to the granular level. Over here right now, we're talking about a low resolution map,
Right.
but we have higher resolution maps, which we've already been talking about before. Watch the meditation, go to my channel and go to the meditation playlist. Okay. We have a series on why to meditate, and now we're doing a series on how to meditate, and we get really granular. And what I would say is the overwhelming feeling, you need to granularize. You need to break it down into feelings in the body, how much of what feeling, where, and changing at what rate. Okay.
Right.
Where is it? What does sad mean? Sad, I want you to break down sad into a feeling. Where is it? How does it feel? Is it a pulsating feeling? Is it a high vibration? Is it a dull kind of numbness? Look, it's physical. It's not magic. Okay. So you break it down in the feeling, how much of what feeling, changing at what rate and where, and then also images in the head and talk in the head. Same kind of principle. How much of what image, changing at what rate, where, how does it feel? So the overwhelming is then you take that overwhelming and you work with it. You break in it, disambiguate it, blah, blah, blah. But go ahead and check out my channel. Now, let me read some of the super chats that we have out here. And thank you very much. And thank you to YouTube. And thank you also to you guys, because the super chatting, the monetization is about you guys, right? I get monetized because you guys subscribe. I get monetized because you guys watch. Like, this has nothing to do with me. So this is all you guys. Is shout out to Snuggles and the rest of you guys out there super chatting. So Snuggles says, good morning, gentlemen. I brought my thesaurus and my comprehension notebook to take notes down and look up words so I can be able to keep up. Shout out, shout out, shout out. That's always good. That's always good. Comprehension is key. Okay. And then Snuggles again, the $5 super chat god in the house says, I want you all to say the phrase in your mind a couple of times. In your mind. That's a good one, because you were talking about, the whole stuttering.
That's
and
right.
Perhaps it's hard to say it, but then if you say it in your mind, that helps.
Right. That's right.
Well, thank you for the $5. That's a good. I'll try that one. Say it in my mind and then try to say it and see if it works. And then we have also here, we're big balling. $20 gets you. You're a sponsor of the show at the $20 level. So after the show is done, in the description, okay, in terms of like this particular show, after the show is done, in the description, I'm gonna put down your name, Krista Joe, as having sponsored this show. So thank you very much. And you said thank you for this newly arriving as well. Make sure you subscribe. Like, subscribe, hit the bell button, and all. LSBA, that's the algorithm. Like, subscribe, bell button, all, ladies and gentlemen. And then we have in here Flocks, just dropping money, not even saying anything, just like, shout out. So I think that was a great breakdown of the physical injury aspect. Okay, the acknowledgement.
That's right.
Okay, the fact that, and I think that whole staircase thing is a great example. Like, you fall down and if there's blood everywhere, you're not just gonna stand. It's like people think, oh well, I'm just gonna shake it off. It's like, no, it's real.
Right. And I want to add this, because I didn't get an opportunity to slide this in there. It's important to find somebody that that you can talk to, because I want you to think about being, when you're in that dark space, like someone mentioned, feeling overwhelmed. Being overwhelmed is like standing in the desert and you're surrounded with just clouds, right? And meaning that, where's north, where's south, where's left, where's right. They're almost blended together. Don Miguel calls that enemy torte, right? It's like smoke, right? And if you have someone that stood on the right side that says, hey, your audio senses will automatically turn all their attention to the right side, or in this case, right side, and you can start looking for direction. And we all know with smoke, as you walk in one direction, over time, you will walk out of the smoke. So what Ike was mentioning earlier, when you meditate, you start to create that voice within the smoke that's yours. And the more you can focus, the more you can hear that voice that says, right this way, right this way. and then you'll find yourself moving in that direction, and after a while the pain is gone. It's like, I want to share a quick story. Someone did something to me, I can't remember what it was, and I was upset about it, and I carried about my day, and I realized something's bothering me, like something pissed me off today, right? So I sat down and I'm like, oh, it was that. And I said, okay, I just need to just talk about it. And I felt the pain, and I realized that everything that we feel, our mind is yearning to be just a blank piece of paper. It at least when we start to meditate, we know how to get to that point where it's completely blank. And then when I started going through my mind, I realized that, okay, it's all blank on this corner. Oh, there it is. Oh, it's what this person didn't do. Okay, they probably didn't mean it, and it's whatever. And all of a sudden the mind is blank, and I was like, okay, back to having a good day.
Oh boy, like you're you are speaking my language, sir. I mean, I always say this, and I've said this in the channel before, that somewhere I said it, that the body, or maybe I haven't, that the body wants to be felt. This is something that I always tell myself, like, same thing you just said with the mind. It wants your mind wants you to go there and erase. Okay, in the image, in the realm of images in the head and talk of the head, you want to go erase. Your body also needs to be felt. Okay, because, and that's what happens. Okay, if we were to just take a brief pause here and say, okay, you are stressed. You don't even know you're stressed. You've been clenching your jaw, gripping the steering wheel, driving home the whole time, and not even realizing it. Okay, what happens then when you take a breath? You start to feel your neck.
Right.
And then I always say this, and it sounds mechanical and boring, but perception precedes control. When you perceive that, then you can do this. Okay. Right. And you can be like, oh, okay, that and this and that. And then it starts to go away. And you're less liable to take certain stupid actions, yell at your wife, cuss at your kids, kick the dog, whatever it may be. These things actually have real consequences. It's not just, oh, well, maybe I'll decide to do it, maybe I'll not. No, this is your life.
That's right.
More so than anything external, because we all live from the center here out. So your subjective consciousness is everything. Okay, so definitely. I mean, and I was going to ask you about, like, exercise. Okay, because again, we're using physical analogies here to paint a low resolution landscape. Okay, so that later on we can then the point is to later on and then fill in the details, fill in the stories, fill in the characters, so on and so forth, get all crazy. But right now we're just drawing the borders. Okay, what is mental health? Because I'm tired of people talking about mental wellness. It's like, what are you talking about, right? It's like, you got to be more specific. When we talk about physical wellness, we talk, well, there's exercise, and exercise has all kinds of categories. We talk about diet, that has all kinds of things. We talk about pathogens and injury. We don't just say, oh, well, physical wellness, physical. Yeah, that thing. It's like, no. So we're trying to create some conceptual boxes, simple and low resolution they may be, for this. So now we're at the point where we're talking about exercise, right? And we have mentioned, of course, all kinds of exercises. Okay. That I'm all about the meditation, formally using your concentration, sensory clarity, equanimity, using that in a formal way, just like you would formally lift up a barbell, right?
Right.
Formally breathing, that kind of stuff. So what are your thoughts, okay, about meditation, prayer, visualization, affirmation, formal ways of exercising your mental, if you will?
Well, you've talked about the topic of meditation, and that's one that really supersedes a lot of it. But meditation and prayer kind of go hand in hand. So what prayer does, prayer allows you to become conscious of your subconscious, right? So I have an exercise I do with my team. I say, okay, today we are going to wave a magic wand, and anything we want to happen today will happen. What would that be? Anything you want to be, what would that be? And you often find a lot of people going, someone once said, that I'll get a burrito. I'm like, with a magic wand, you get a burrito. So I really started to say, so really, what would you do? And then she went on to say, I think I would go visit my grandma. Says, really? But you can go visit your grandma right now. Huh? And then what would you do? And one of them said, you know, I would get a Lamborghini. Okay, you would get a, you know, the point is spending time with yourself is really how you start the exercise. And that's what I called about recovery. So recovery from that perspective is to sit down with yourself and spend time with yourself. Talk to yourself. I don't mean out verbally, but your mind can speak and yell. I gave a video where if I wrote down on a piece of paper, how are you? Right? And I ask you to say it without moving your lips, you will hear it, but you would hear it without your ears, right? But you would actually hear someone saying, how are you? Have you ever thought for a second, is that a man or woman? Who's that exactly, right? That's the person that we neglect a lot, okay? But one thing that we have to understand, that person is always on your side. They're always out for your best interest, and they know you better than anyone else. So prayer is it gives you an opportunity to sit down with that person. Like, try this. Like, if you believe in prayer, close your eyes and try to pray. All of a sudden, you'll find a lot of distractions. As soon as you close your eyes, all of a sudden, I got to send that email to Tom. Oh, I have to send that email to Jennifer. Have I called Mike back? That's because your mind has been saying, listen to me, listen to me. So the first moment you close your eyes, you're getting rid of the Jennifer emails, the Tom emails, the Mike request, and then
with that eraser,
right,
and make
yeah,
sure you
and then
erase.
all of a sudden you'll find this little person that says, God, I had a long day. And all of a sudden, the moment you connect with that person, then you're now officially meditating. And then that person start to tell you everything that they need you to do more of. I need to plan my day tomorrow so that I don't have to worry about, oh, I forgot to contact Tom and Mike. Oh, I need to call my mom, you know. And then all of a sudden you start to find this inner peace, but it doesn't happen automatically. So how do you practice that? So let's talk about practical steps. So if you wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning every day, tomorrow I want you to wake up at 6:30. If you wake up at 6:30, I want you to wake up at 6. If you can do 30 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, and take that 15 minutes and go into a place in your house that you often don't go, so that you're not bothered by what you're familiar. Go in your closet, go in the closet, just shut it might sound awkward, but when you practice this long enough, you can do this anywhere. Go in there and just start to erase your mind. Okay, I got to get rid of this. I got to get rid of this. And it might be awkward at first, but that's normal. Babies don't start walking right away. They kind of start and they're wavering a little bit. Then after a while, those little gremlins run around the house, breaking everything. So start by doing that. And then when you're praying, don't talk about what you want to get rid of. Talk about what you want to see happen. Like we talk about, let's talk about the physical space. I would like to lose 20 pounds. Well, what do you need to do to start losing 20 pounds? Start to talk about that. So when you're praying and meditating, focus on the things that you want to see happen and follow what I call PAR. Find out what the problem is. So the problem is I'm 20 pounds overweight. The action is I need to change my diet and I need to start exercising, because once you go to the A, the next step is the resolution or the results. So when you are praying, take prayer in a PAR. The problem is I had a long day and I couldn't fulfill all my stuff. So what actions am I going to do? So in your prayer, you're saying, I pray that I will take the actions to get the desired results. But you have to learn that the first step is to erase your mind. And then after a while, you get to that point where you could be driving, right? And you could just put your car on cruise control. You hold your steering wheel and you could just do this exercise. Or you're at a meeting, or before you go into a meeting, you go into the bathroom and you could do this exercise, or you're about to perform on stage if you're the shy type. And that's essentially what Ike does. You just kind of go through this quick exercise and you're going to be okay, right? But start by being a little bit uncomfortable, doing things that are out of your normal. And eventually you'll find that exercise it'll become habit, and eventually it becomes process and procedure. And then it becomes a light switch. You just kind of go action, right? So it's just taking that deep breath and connecting with that little person inside your mind that's always asking for your attention, but you're too busy with all the ambitorte, the smoke all around you. And that person, once you connect with it, they will let you get to a point where you could say, this is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. And that person is always ready to make good decisions and ready to offer sound guidance And a mixture of prayer and meditation, you will strengthen that person's abilities. And after a while, you won't need 30 minutes. It could be 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, you'll need a minute. Sometimes it becomes just, oh my God, that used to make me upset. Now I didn't even notice it, right? Or someone will go, oh my God, I can't believe that didn't make you mad. You're like, well, why should I be mad? So I don't know if that made sense, but that
Well, it made a lot of sense. So the first thing, the kind of overarching or on top of what you said or meta to what you said is that it should be taken seriously. Like you cannot read a book about losing weight and lose weight. You cannot read a book about, you can't just go and stare at the piano real hard, right? And then all of a sudden become good at it. The same thing, all this emotional and intellectual masturbation that goes on surrounding mental health, meditation, and so on and so forth, is like talking about bicycle seats, bicycle frames, bicycle helmets, but you never sat on a bicycle before. You're not going to know how to ride the bike. Trust me, you can read all the books in the world about how to ride a bicycle. Get on that bicycle, you're going to fall. Until you start falling, you're never going to learn. So you have to do it. We live in a real world. It's not, oh, there's a physical world and all this other mental stuff. I just kind of put it over, just kind of hide it. No, you have to actually formally do these things. And that's why he said, even go into your closet if you have to. Like you have to actually make a practice, wake up 30 minutes before, actually do it. And then you went back to the principle of the mind wanting to be noticed.
That's right.
And wiped clean. The feelings in the body also wanting to be noticed. Okay, I'm very much a somatic kind of person, a feelings kind of person. Like I have very quick access into my body, so I use the body a lot. I use breathing a lot. So go into the body, check my right shoulder. Okay, right at the shoulder blade over there. Feel okay, what's going on over there? Relax that. Check this. Check, and then before you know it, you're gonna start noticing, as you said, oh, that person didn't do this.
Right.
That's why my neck hurts. And I think that it is very, very important. So quick shout out to Red Sings the Blues, Dr. Thunder in the house, Eddie in the house. Okay. And like the stream, says Good Men. Like the stream. Good Men is a fellow Dusty out there. One of the best moderators out there on YouTube. So I'm going to go ahead and ask a couple of questions, but I want to go ahead and open up the live stream if you still have I don't know how much time you've got.
I'm good.
Okay, so let me go ahead and drop the link, and then I'm gonna ask a couple of questions while let me see here. What does it say? It says join the stream. That's what it says. So going hand in hand with the whole exercise thing, because we talked about diet, we talked about parasites, we talked about injury, and we talked about exercise. These are things that we have a good intuition for, a good map for, a good story for in the land of physical health. We're trying to transpose that over. We're trying to do simple analogy, draw a broad brush, low resolution map, okay? And going hand in hand with exercise is de-stressing.
That's right.
Right. And I find stress to be an interesting one because stress is almost that nexus point between mental and physical. Right. It's like we kind of know we feel stress in our bodies and we know it's very closely related to the mind. So I just want to say, people out there, pay attention to the stress in your body as a way to getting into the stress in your mind. Or if you are someone who can do the mind thing more, because again, go watch my series on meditation where we're right now looking at all the various entry points into meditation through the body, internal sensations, emotional internal sensations, not emotional internal sensations, external perceptions, all your five senses, and then the senses in your head, blah, blah, blah. There's so many entry points, okay,
Right.
into going in there and noticing, erasing, and becoming more, being in equanimity, if you will. So mental stress, exercise helps you not only to carry more mental stress, as you said, oh, that doesn't bother me anymore, right? That kind of a thing. Now you're lifting heavier weights, right? That it's equivalent to that, wouldn't you say? It's like, yeah, it's like you before, this weight used to crush you, and now you do these things, and all of a sudden you're not bothered by it anymore. And there's physical ramifications, as we know, the mind and the body, it's not like there are one. So let me talk about the need for a framework, because this thing has to do with what the stigma and what I think is all about the lack of understanding. Okay, we do not understand, we do not have an intuition, we do not have a map at all for the landscape of mental health. That's why we use very vague terms like mental wellness week, like or whatever, like we still don't understand, and we depend on experts. We are in that situation where we fall down the steps, we hit our knee, and we're surprised, and we run to the surgeon and be like, what's going on? In other words, we depend too much on jargon from so-called experts, platitudes and cliches, and appeals to emotion. So we say, be more empathetic to those who have. I say no. Number one, it's a personality thing. I don't like sappy stuff. Don't pull my heartstrings. Don't be telling me to be more empathetic or all that nonsense. Give me understanding. Understanding will take care of the empathy. If I understand that, oh, he fell down the steps in the mental realm, right? Then I can commiserate. You simply just telling me, oh, you need to have more understanding have more empathy without an actual understanding, without giving me a hook to grok this thing intuitively. It just doesn't work. Okay. So I think that some societies in the past, okay, and I think all societies in the past had a better understanding or better framework for spiritual things. Okay. And I use that word for a particular reason, for a particular reason. Okay. Spiritual meaning consciousness. Okay. Spirit means consciousness. What is a spirit? A spirit is a disembodied consciousness. What's the ultimate spirit? The ultimate spirit is God. It's this kind of overwhelming, all-encompassing, all-knowing, all-being, all-seeing consciousness out there, right? So the other societies have a framework, whereby they deal with mental illness as spiritual things. You're casting out the demons, right? And I think that this works not just in terms of the placebo effect, which is real, by the way, because I always find it funny how people talk about the placebo. It's just a placebo. But it worked. It's like it actually worked. It's not, there's no just because you put the word just in front of something. And by the way, that is one thing. Oh my God. It's a worthwhile tangent, okay? Notice when people say things like just or merely or only, you can diminish the value of anything by using those words. Right. It's a great trick that people do, probably unconsciously, but it holds no water. It's BS. So people will say things like, after all, human beings are just a bag of chemicals. Who said a bag of chemicals was just anything? A bag of chemicals is the universe, right? It exists. Right. It is the biggest trip. You cannot explain why or what the hell this universe is. So to just say, oh, it's just an atom, whenever people want, and they do it, to sound above and smarter or whatever. Oh, this is just merely that. It is only this. That's just silly. Nothing is only anything. Okay. Realize that nothing is only anything. Okay. It's just something people do to play these kind of hierarchy games, gotcha games, and it's rather silly. But the placebo works, but it also works because I'm African, you're African too, right? And we both grew up in Africa. So we kind of know the whole shaman, babalawo, juju type stuff. Okay. So we know that, okay, we have this kind of person, maybe he suffers schizophrenia. They have their own kind of rituals that they have to do. They have a place, they have a story, they have a context. In other words, they're not in the situation where they don't know what mental is. To them, it is spiritual, which is the same thing because spirit is consciousness. They have a firm grip of consciousness. You could say, oh, but it's inaccurate, but we don't have an accurate one either. We're still waiting to find out what particular special arrangement of matter will give rise to consciousness in our own particular way of thinking, because we're all Western materialists, whether we like it or not. Right. So other people, other places, even back then when Jesus was walking the earth and, casting out demons, could be said that was probably schizophrenia or something, but they had a possession, spiritual, whatever. But point is, they had a frame, and having this frame, having a place where people actually had a role, they had a set of rituals, They had a place to be. This removes all the I don't say ostracism. Okay,
Right.
ostracization or ostracization, whatever.
I got
Okay. It removes that thing, the stigma from it, and
Right.
these people now have a role. They have an identity. They're not kind of hidden and off in the shadows. And mental stuff, I don't know what that is, right? So I would ask you now, because we've kind of been weaving in, because when you talk consciousness, you got to talk spiritual, because again, consciousness and spiritual are the same word. I believe it's a Germanic root, right? People tend to forget what spirit means. But what are your thoughts regarding a spiritual framework and all that bowl of soup that I just spilled on the floor there? Like, what comes to mind with regards to a spiritual framework? Even though I know that we're kind of we're Western people, we cannot put ourselves in the shoes of a 5th century African, But what are your thoughts on the spiritual framework?
I think that it's definitely one of the most, it's neglected. Our society is geared on on what I like, social media beliefs and all these theories that really neglect the spiritual aspect of who we are. It is said that we are spiritual beings. That's similar to the example I gave earlier. If you close your eyes, you can go anywhere. That's your spirit, man. That's your spirit, your spiritual consciousness. You can go anywhere. You can talk to yourself. You can even have a conversation with someone. Right now, you can close your eyes and pretend that you're talking to Donald Trump, and you'll hear Donald Trump's voice. You'll hear your voice having a conversation with him. So our spiritual mind can go anywhere. So the framework is missing in our society. There's an absence of it. But most religious beliefs, Christianity, you can go down the list. I could only speak for Christianity to some, as what I know. They provide a framework of that really is dealing with moral uprightness, or a form of ethics, do's and don'ts, rules of the game, how far you can go, how far you cannot, that speak to your spiritual consciousness. I don't know, for everyone listening to this video, if you're not familiar with the Bible, forget about, let's just put away the everything that and just pick up the book of Proverbs, okay? And you'll find that what it says in those scriptures are speaking to a part of you that never gets spoken to. And what you'll find, which is very interesting, it'll say the wise man built his house on a rock, but the foolish man built his house on the sand. So in other words, do you want to be a wise man or do you want to be a foolish man, right? So it comes down to decision making. So establishing a framework of that is all encompassing the ideas of meditation, the ideas of prayer, the ideas of exercising your spiritual mind, the ideas of following a set of principles, whether it's reading scriptures, whether it is of being conscious that you're a conscious being and your consciousness is derived from a subconscious mind that needs to feel and understand what's going on, that needs to express itself from time to time. So creating that framework is an exercise that I think we're starting. We're tackling that, as I said, on a very low resolution basis, which can quickly move to a high resolution and become what we call deep, right? The deep end of it, right? But you can start on the simple end of it and you realize that the depth and the frame of how far you want to go, that's all up to you. And it doesn't take much to go there at all. So we have to understand that, the saying, stand for something and fall for anything. You want to stand for something that's important, right? Why do you exist? Like I said, why am I here? Right? Those are questions that when you ask, they start to trigger many other things. But I think surrounding yourself with some of the principles and ideas that we discussed in this video is a free and no risk framework that you can try, and you'll realize that it will make a difference. I can't say I guarantee, but I'll say I guarantee it. It will make a difference. It will make a difference. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I would second the guarantee. Spiritual logic, aka Hawk. Great topic and wisdom, says he. And also, I talk. Can you do you mind reading what spiritual logic says? He's like the last chat down there, if you can see it.
I'm not sure I can see it. I don't know if my chats.
Okay.
The last chat that I got was at 6:49.
Gotcha. Yeah. On StreamYard, there's something going on. But if I
Okay.
look on YouTube, I can see
Oh,
spiritual
okay.
logic
I think
says.
I can tune in. I think I got a there we go. I have it right here on my phone, and the last one says he says, AKA logic, AKA Hulk. We govern ourselves by values, principles, laws, and attributes that determine how we react, what we expect, and how we treat one another. Defines spiritual. Okay. I like the fact that you went to the Hulk because I had a friend of mine. She was having a difficult time trying to establish a relationship with a guy, and the relationship every time she would go to him, he takes advantage of her. And I told her, I said, I want you to identify that you are Iron Man and you are Tony Stark, right? Am I saying that right? Tony Stark. And every time you go to him, you are presenting Iron Man. You need to go to him as Tony Stark, right? So meaning that at some point we have to identify that we could be those two people, but one of them needs to be, because Tony Stark had needs. He wanted to be with a girl and he wanted to be rich and powerful in the society. Iron Man is just like, where's the danger? I'm going to go solve it. So we have to understand to some degree, we are Tony Stark and Iron Man, and our ability to connect with our Tony Stark is our physical realm, and our Iron Man is our spiritual realm, and our spiritual man has some abilities that our physical man can only dream about.
Shout out, shout out, shout out. And we do have spiritual logic in the building. So what you got for us, sir?
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
What's going
Great conversation. Great conversation. And like you said about the framework, because when I bring up the Bible specifically, it's really, there's a natural law and there's a way that we deal with ourselves. Because I tell people all the time, your biggest enemy is yourself.
That's
It's not the world. It's yourself. It's your awareness of your weaknesses, of your of anything within you that the world and anyone else can use to manipulate you. And so your mind is kind of like like you say, it's actually who you are.
That's right.
We're developed by our surroundings, by our upbringing, but eventually your mind does. And I like the Bible because the Bible actually gives me understanding to the things that I have to deal with in life, like my anger. Growing up, you have sadness, you can have confusion, you can have all of these things. And, a framework that teaches you, like simple principles like cause and effect, you reap what you sow.
That's right.
People forget these things. Like, if a man wants to eat, he has to work. And these concepts, as simple as they sound, they elude a lot of people. A lot of people have unrealistic expectations for what they put in to life and what they want to get out of life.
Right.
So, I just, this is a very good conversation. I think this is like the best conversation you can have because, like I said, without a framework, and like you said, without really understanding that spirit man, or what is governing you. Like, how do you define purpose, meaning? Because honestly, that's going to determine how you deal with anything in life. How your mindset is to attack anything that you don't like or any goals or ambitions you do like. So, because a lot of people, to me, are on autopilot.
Yep.
They don't really take time to realize what's actually affecting them and what they're reacting to. Like, are they really making conscious decisions, or they're just reacting through life?
Yeah, and allow me to add to that. I think that when people, the absence of that connection, I think is the biggest problem, because the moment you can make that connection, you start to be in control. You start to understand that I can choose how this is going to affect me, or I can choose if this is going to affect me. I'll give a quick example. I remember way back a while ago when it was popular to walk into the bank to make a deposit. I remember going in there and I stood in there. It was arguably 20 people in line, and there was only 2 people working. And the lady in front of me and next to me just rolling her eyes. Can they open more space? And in my mind, I just, you know what? I got to a point where I was like, I want to say something to this lady, right? And I looked at her and I leaned over. I said, lady, you know what the best part about this? Sooner or later, we're all gonna get out of here. And she looked at me and goes, that's true. And we started to have a conversation. And the next thing you know, it was her turn. And she walked up to the cash register and everything was going on. And in my mind, I'm like, we're gonna get out of here.
Exactly.
I don't think they're gonna lock us in here and go, oh, well, the line's so long, you're gonna spend the night here. And even if they did, it's a bank. I'm sure they'll give us some first class hotel seats or something, rooms or something. You know, I mean, paint the picture that you want, right? That control is always ours.
And you know what's crazy is, for me, it's adversity. Adversity will either build you or break you.
Yeah, that's right.
And and I think adversity is actually a good thing because it shows you who you are under duress. And because you don't know who you truly are until you're tested. Like I can believe anything, but I won't know who I really am and what I'm really capable of until I have to rise to the occasion, until I'm challenged. And I think that's the best way to draw out your potential if you actually want to draw it out, is that you do so through adversity. Because we see what happens with people who are spoiled and who never had to work. And they usually become dependent on things that they didn't control.
Right.
And so the moment that rug is lifted under their feet, what happens? They collapse. They don't know what to do. But self-made people are very powerful,
All right. All
Let
that
me
adversity.
read this super chat real quick, and then I'm going to mention something about adversity, and I have a question for you, Spiritual Logic. So this is from Jonathan, and he has $40. That's twice the amount you need to be a sponsor of the show. Wow. Thank you very much. Shout out. And he says, I just noticed this live, brother, but I have some work to get done. So I'm going to have to maybe catch the replay while working tomorrow. Okay. And he says, hashtag Dusty Gang. Yes, it's an inside joke. We're all dusty, apparently. And we're proud, dusty. I was going to say dusty N-words, but I'm not going to say it.
I'm going to trigger the algorithm.
I don't want to trigger the algorithm, but it would have been so perfect. Yes, it sounds so good. But and then below he says, yeah, he wanted to donate more, but he already hit the $500 daily limit on YouTube. He's just balling out there. Shout out to Jonathan. Okay, so what you mentioned about adversity being a good, I think that people have many kind of physical analogies for it in terms of iron sharpened iron, and you got to be forged in pressure diamonds, and I think that we have a lot more closer, more real, some of which you identified, things to point to when it comes to the use it or lose it principle, because that's really what we're talking about. All of life and any complex system, so it turns out to be, works on the principle of use it or lose it. In other words, your bones, your muscles, your immune system, your mind, your sight, you name it. Also, the ecosystem, the economy, so on and so forth. You need to actually stress it out. So, in other words, there is something called, let's say, fragile. Okay, a champagne glass. Okay, you put it in a box. You say, "Hey, fragile," right? And it's being shipped, and that means the guy don't shake it around. Okay, that's fragile. And then there's something called robust. If fragile, let's say it's on the plus side. Okay, let's say fragile is I can't see my hand, but all good. Let's say fragile is on the plus side. Okay, robustness is a 0. Okay, robustness means if I shake it, it's fine. If I don't shake it, it's fine. And we tend to think that robust and fragile are the opposites of each other, but no, there is something on the negative side which needs to be shaken. Otherwise, it's not fine. Okay,
right.
That's our whole world as biological systems and on and on and on is on the anti-fragile end of we're not robust nor fragile. We are actually it's like we put us in a box.
Immune system.
Please shake the box. Please stress the bones. Please work the muscles. Please train the mind. Please hit me with some perturbation, randomness, and disturbance. Otherwise, I will atrophy and die. it's a category we tend not to realize. We just think, oh, it's a fragile or it's robust. Like, no, there are things that need to be shaken up. If you leave them still, they actually die. So that is one point I wanted to make. But I want to ask you, spiritual logic, where you got your own particular kind of, because you mentioned the Bible, and I've listened to you on other people's panels and so on and so forth. And you talk about it in a way that I find to be rather different. Not that I've seen you kind of really go into, but you seem to have a certain kind of a conviction that I'm not used to. In other words, it doesn't have a flavor I'm used to. Okay.
Okay.
I was raised Catholic. I know Christian. You know, I've seen all the different flavors, but the way you tend to talk about it is rather different. So it leads me to want to ask you the question, right? How did you encounter, like, oh, I'm going to go in here to find these principles and to found myself and to be guided in this particular way? Is there some kind of a system that is out there for you? Some kind of a community? Like, how did you venture upon this particular spiritual path that you are on?
Okay, that's that's a good question. Well, for me, it was because I grew up, both my parents weren't there when I was growing up, so I grew up in confusion. So out the gate, my life was very uncertain. I had to deal with things. You know, I had to figure things out at a young age. And I think that, you either a kind of person who's gonna, like, I had confusion, I had sadness, I had rage, I had all these emotions as a child, not having their mother or their father around, being in other people's homes, not feeling secure, not feeling, what I think we need to feel as children to actually develop ourselves and gain some kind of wisdom and principles. So, and this is real funny. I'm gonna say this, but it's interesting we mentioned consciousness because I did a video on my page. It's called "Where Is God?" And it kind of comes from my childhood where I thought I was talking to myself when I was growing up because I would ask these questions out of rage, out of sadness, and it's weird because when somebody says that's your conscience talking, right? I used to always ponder and say, why would I be talking to myself if I'm sure about what I'm, you know,
Wow.
doing and what I'm thinking and what I want? And oftentimes it's like every time what we were told to be our conscience, I even broke down the word conscience, but every time we're told, it's always against like the fleshly and carnal things. It's always that, like if I told a lie, it's my so-called conscience would tell me that's not a good thing, or it's always the positive that I'm talking to. It's never really my conscience that needs to tell me, yeah, you should do the wrong thing. Now that's pretty much automatic. When you're a child and you're like, how children can be sneaky, children can tell lies, they can manipulate the parents to get what they want. And so in doing so, I started to notice patterns in his voice, and the patterns through trial and error, through experiences, started to develop a structure. Well, even before I got to the Bible, because for all extensive purposes, my family and I have totally different views of the Bible versus if you look at the church system and versus what the Bible actually says. It's more aligned. Like you mentioned, Jesus. Well, his life was very structured.
That's right.
Jesus was not very reactionary to carnal, worldly things, and he always exposed like what was it, the intent of the heart of a person or what they truly meant to say, regardless to what they actually said they were doing. It always got to the root of the issue. So and so when I actually did read the Bible and I read it, at a young age completely, I was just seeking because my life was in such turmoil. I think this is what it was forcing me to do. It forced me to seek out answers, like big answers. Why was I born? Why was my life this way? I was it was almost like a cry out type of situation. Like I need answers. I need understanding. So in doing so, when I started to read the Bible, it's like the Bible has a reflection of a natural law, like almost like we were speaking about the immune system, how things, when things are tested, they tend to get stronger. And it was like, and you reap what you sow, and avoiding being reactionary, self-control, self-discipline. And I was basically looking because I didn't like being upset all the time. I didn't like being sad all the time. And I think some people maybe have a spirit to be complacent and just be a permanent victim. But I was kind of, I don't know how it was in me, but I always had this kind of warrior mentality to overcome, to
Mm.
seek out answers, and to I guess I was just, because I was born into that situation. I didn't even have a baseline of happiness or something. I was just born into a confusing situation. The moment I became conscious, I knew things weren't right. So my instinct was just to seek answers, seek out understanding. So as I was reading the Bible, it was kind of like I would see people in all these situations. I was like, like even Adam and Eve, like, okay, cause and effect. You did something you weren't supposed to
That's right.
do.
That's
There's
right.
a consequence. And I started to see the adversity that many other people, many other characters were going through in the Bible. I was like, it seems like there's a pattern to this struggle. So
Mm.
there's a pattern to adversity that always comes out victorious.
Mm.
So and the victory may not be like even the story of Joseph, where he was sold into slavery by his own family,
Hmm.
and then he came to be a ruler over second to Pharaoh over Egypt. And it was like how he used that situation, and he didn't react, impulsively to just be angry and just be, random and all these things, but he actually kept his structure
Wow.
about him in hard situations where it actually developed him to be a leader, to just be, have self-control and to not be reactive. So it was so many things that I just started to see that repeated pattern of adversity and overcoming and coming out to a positive outcome. So it was this wisdom that, the Bible has, man, very concrete wisdom
It
that
does.
if you live long enough, you will actually see it play out in your own life.
Hmm.
We'll talk. We'll talk. And I wanna. That was nice. Uh, it was spiritual wisdom. I think is what it was.
Spiritual logic.
Spiritual logic. There you go. I'm sorry about that. As you were talking,
No, you good.
I'm reminded of the story in the Bible about the book of Job. And what's fascinating about that story was we have a story about a man who the Bible describes as someone who's upright and did nothing wrong. And and without going to all the details, what you find is if you look at every character in the Bible, they go through this transformation process that's full of
Hmm.
adversity. They have to. Abraham went through his, Joseph went through his, David, they all go through these trials and tribulations. But
Right.
Job is the only character that starts off like he's the man. He was righteous, did everything right, but God tested him, and he gets to a point where in his rage, he finally gets God to answer questions. So when you were talking, when we feel that rage, that I
Hmm.
am angry, we're about to give birth to something. We're about to break through to something because most people don't know this, but the Bible talks more about creation in the book of Job than it does in Genesis. Because it says in the
Yeah.
beginning was the world, he made heaven and earth, and he made the animals in the sea, the birds in the sky, man and woman, and da, da, da. But it in Job's rage, God starts talking about how he put the clouds together, how he gave
And Leviathan
the
and
Leviathan, exactly, how
Yeah.
he gave
Yep.
the horse his strength and how he took away wisdom from the ostrich. I'm sitting there going, so I had a moment where I got angry too, and God started teaching me something, but that's another topic. But I really like the fact that you brought that out, and that's what the Bible gives you. It gives you scenarios that you can say, he did this and the result was this. That means that if I do this, I would get
Right. And
those.
what's interesting? It also taught me personal responsibility. The
Mm,
fact that how I act in a situation it will strongly determine
the
the
out.
outcome.
That's right.
hmm,
And even as I got older and I realized that people started to see the effects of my framework of my structure, and they say, well, how did you become the man you are?
You
And
became
it
a light.
always yeah, and it always came down to, reflecting myself to this certain framework. And and when you get to a point, you just look at the results of something to determine whether it was good or bad. And being who I am now, looking at the things I've overcome in life and avoided in life that a lot of people who carry pain didn't avoid. I
Mm,
have to realize that it was how I attacked that adversity. that made the difference. That's why my framework and my mental through my life determine the outcome of my life. And I'm still growing now. Like I don't have a fear of when things are not going my way. I actually see it as a challenge. I actually see it as an opportunity to evolve, to get extract more potential. I just have a different way of looking at life now.
Yes, that's real. That's real.
Ladies and gentlemen, today, okay, over here on this channel, and welcome to the channel, by the way, for those of you just coming in, my name is Ike Gammon, and I'm your host over here. We talk about being and doing, okay? Sometimes being better and doing better with a strong emphasis on doing, okay? I believe in use it or lose it. I believe in taking action. I believe that everything is like riding a bicycle, okay? Everything is like riding a bicycle, okay? So today, what are we doing? Today, we are forming a low resolution map of the landscape of mental health. Because I believe that we believe in, or we use platitudes. We believe in, let's say, technical jargon, okay, from the so-called experts and professionals, and that we need to not do that so much. That's similar to running to the surgeon every time you get a pinprick or a paper cut. No, in physical space,
Exactly.
we have a kind of understanding, a logic, a framework, an intuitive understanding that, okay, I fall down the steps, I hit my knee, our favorite analogy of the day. I expect it to hurt. I don't expect to just get up and then, go dancing in the middle of the club when there's blood all over the couch or whatever. I expect, okay, this is going to take a few weeks. It's going to take a few steps to recover and so on and so forth. So we're asking the question, okay, what are the corollaries, the equivalents of certain aspects of physical health? What is the equivalent of a bad diet? What is a bad spiritual or mental diet? What is a spiritual or mental parasite? What is the equivalent of bad exercise or spiritual injury? Right? So we're taking these things that we understand very well from the materialistic world, because we are Western materialists. We are mastered that matter thing. Okay. We can measure it, spin it, do large hadron collider, smash it together, create black hole. We've beat the matter to death. Okay. But how about consciousness? That's the one that we're kind of scared of. Okay. We're not so good at it. We know that the East, okay, the Buddha people and the rest of them, they mastered that thing. And, little side note, you can't win every war. Okay. So the West won the physical war, but the East conquered us spiritually. And that's why, yeah, we beat them, but now we're wearing yoga pants and going namaste everywhere and trying to find ourselves, right?
Right.
So you can't win on all fronts.
That's
So
right.
this is the front that I think is necessary for us as people, or Western people, who first of all need to admit that you are a Western materialist. You can't try to act like you're not. And then when you admit that, then go ahead and start focusing on the spiritual / the consciousness. Okay. And I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to give both of you guys a last word here. Okay. We're trying to create a space within our stories for mental health. That's kind of a way to put it. We have a story about falling down the steps, and then I hit my knee, and then he's going to take 3 weeks, and then I got chocolate, the end. That's a nice little story, right? We don't have similar corollary stories for mental situations, right? Mental health situations. It's filled with confusion and vagueness and all kinds of platitudes and cliches. And I think that the beginning is to just take what we know, the map of physical health space. It maps on rather nicely to mental health space, because you are a body and a mind, and it's all kind of one in the same universe anyways, right? So this helps us to kind of commiserate with others whom are going through physical or mental things, because when that person falls down the steps, we can commiserate with them. We know the story of falling down the steps, but we're not so good with the story of being hurt mentally. Okay. And then we can go further after this. Okay. After this low resolution sketch of the map, to populate the map with other higher resolution concepts. For example, how does the mental parasite find a hook in your mind? Okay. And in other words, what are the mechanisms? Okay. Okay. Mental parasite, you're watching too much P-Hub, and and yeah, I'm learning this algorithm. I know the words to avoid, and then, okay, how exactly does it lodge itself in there? What does it do to you? What does it obstruct? What does it block? What does it cause you to do? Those are kind of like the finer, granular, and higher resolution things which you can only garner by practice and meditation or any kind of formal practice, affirmations, visualizations, prayer. And Aitwa touched on these earlier. So some key highlights on this conversation. One was basically in the world of parasites. How do you stop parasites? You stop parasites with principle. P, P, P. Parasites, stop with principle and not taking it personally, right?
That's right.
In other words, your shield is up. If you take it personally, the parasite has gotten in.
That's right.
And how do you, and the not taking it personally, it helps to have principles, okay? And in my way of putting things, in one of the videos that I've made, we talk about who you are or why you exist. I'm talking about a story, okay? In other words, your story should be a story of principles. That's, what is a story about? A story is about the moral of the story, right? So you are a story. That was my thesis of that video, is that you are a story. And we kind of said, okay, I agree, I'm a story. And what is the point of a story? That's why you exist. You exist because of the moral of the story. So your story should be populated with principles only, not the fact you have a Bentley and the fact you have this and you're part of this tribe and your mom is this and that or the other. The more you populate the story with all these other things and identify with those things, you're just leaving yourself open to attack. So skinny down the story, keep it down to principles, don't take it personally. Okay. And then in the realm of exercise, you actually need to do it. You can't just be reading books or going to places with hippie chicks wearing their beads and talking about no. You got to actually wake up. If you got to get up at 6 o'clock, wake up 5:30, go in that closet or do whatever it is you got to do and actually do stuff. It's not this virtue signaling crap, because that's not what we do over here. Over here, we keep things simple, measurable, actionable. Okay. Whatever it is we talk about in this channel, there's going to be some action to be taken. It's going to be intuitively understood. It's not going to be just blah, 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 highfalutin nonsense. So we've laid out the beginnings of a simple map, ladies and gentlemen. And I will give you guys the last word, starting with spiritual logic. You got the floor.
Well, very well said. I'm glad I caught this stream, man. You very needed. Just to sum things up, and I'm gonna make it pretty anecdotal. When I was growing up, I had this concept that caused a lot of my problems. Was I expected a perfect life, and I and I was like, well, I expected a perfect life, but I'm an imperfect person. And when I reflected to that concept, it took me back to personal responsibility. It's like, how can I expect a perfect life if I'm an imperfect person? And so it made me realize that out of brokenness and pain, do I attract a lot of my problems? Because that determines how I react to them. Like a lot of people, they come to addiction. They, like you mentioned, lack of self-discipline, self-control, is because they living out of their brokenness. So when we get our understandings that, the world is an imperfect place because it's full of imperfect people. So basically, you have to govern yourself. And this is why, again, I like the Bible, because the Bible, it exposes me. It exposes when I'm vain. It exposes when I'm greedy. It exposes when I'm lustful. It exposes all of these things that make me responsible, because these things are just innate to me. And anybody who does wrong, they're functioning from that, that area. And the Bible kind of keeps that ahead of you. It kind of says, you know what? You are a broken person.
That's right.
You need to keep this structure and principle about you to always keep that awareness of these things and how they affect you. And it's like I started to become aware, like a lot of guys struggle with women. I'm like, are you aware of the lust in your heart and how that draws you? Are you, how that draws you to the same women that you're going to not like? And it's like people don't look inward enough. Like the evil within you is going to make you susceptible to the evil outside of you. And so I just wanted to leave on that note. Thanks for having me up, man. Great conversation. Thanks to the other brother. Ike, you always doing your thing, man. Much respect.
Shout out to Spiritual Logic in the house. You guys already know of him. For those of you who do not know him, go ahead and subscribe to his channel. Salute. And Aitwa, what you got to say?
Yeah, I just want to say that a couple of things here. One thing is the most powerful thing that we need in this life is someone that loves us. And what I mean by someone, just think about how a man and a woman come together and say, "Hey, we want to stay married." What that really is we're looking for someone to love us and accept us for who we are for the rest of our lives, right? We're looking for that person to make us happy. We're looking to make that person happy, et cetera, et cetera. But let me simplify that by saying that we have to become lovable and we have to show love, right? That's almost the goal at some point
Mhm.
where, whether it's being a father or a mother, we're trying to love someone and show love to someone and vice versa. And
Mhm.
for that to happen, we have to go through this exercise of mental health, because having that space as clean as possible makes you more accepting of people, and makes you more accepting to people, because that essentially untangles the complexities that we create for ourselves. So in a nutshell, be well, find out who you are inside, because the moment you know who that person is, it becomes easy to get loved by someone else, because they can see you, they can feel you. I mean, look at a person who is struggling. They're just looking for someone to love them, right? And your ability to be loved, no, has a lot to do with your ability to love yourself and be in touch with yourself. And the more you're in touch with yourself, the more attractive you become to people. And that is not just for love. That goes in line with sales, like we've talked about. That goes in line with, getting a job. It goes in line with getting treated nicely at a restaurant, because you're so in touch with yourself. You're vulnerable enough for people to feel you, right? So this stuff that we're talking about goes a long way. And I know you're not going to take it for granted after this video.
Bam, bam. It's gee, okay. Well, that is very good, ladies and gentlemen. One more time. We are always grateful to have Aitwa, aka New Game, in the house. He is the president of American Heritage University and also producer, mixer, and masterer extraordinaire musician, which we will be coming back with some more music streams. We did a couple, or maybe one of those before already. And we like to talk about sales, influencing, and persuasion. We also like to talk about other things, but we keep things intuitive, simple, measurable, actionable. Okay. Not highfalutin. These are things you should do. Okay. So you no longer have an excuse. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up with our usual. Okay, our usual song, Battle Within, which kind of summarizes the entire content. I will be releasing this song along with Run um, by April. Okay, and then the album will come out later on this year. My apologies, but the Rona, the bear flu, whatever, is has kind of really interrupted the flow of the album. But ladies and gentlemen, don't worry about it. You guys will continue to, when I have new tracks out, I'll be playing it on here so that you guys can hear the new tracks before it actually gets officially released. So we've painted a low resolution map. We asked ourselves, what are the equivalents, okay, in spiritual space, in consciousness space? What is the equivalent of injury, bad diet, exercise, pathogens, okay, stress? What does this mean in mental space? So that when we talk about mental health, we don't just go off with platitudes and technical jargon and vagueness. We have to know, okay, well, my mental diet today is this. Oh, I got mentally injured this way. Oh, I have to do this particular mental exercise so this particular mental muscle does not atrophy, so that I have mental health, so that it actually means something when we say that phrase, mental health. So thank you very much again for all those who super chatted, Snuggles, and everyone else, to Mr. Jonathan, to the sponsors of the stream, which are Jonathan and Krista. Over $20 makes you a sponsor. Don't hesitate to check out the Cash App as well, and the Patreon. Yes, I did start a Patreon. Drop $5 a month at least in my pocket. Thank you. Okay?
We out.
We out.
passions in our hearts, shed waters in our balls. The spirit and the flesh, the emotions that arrest. The cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded. The teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. With the semblance of a blaze, with gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded. The teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. The world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within.